Okay, good evening, everybody. I'll go ahead and call to order this regular session of the Auburn City Council for November 9th, 2020. Before we take roll, I just want to mention, due to the ongoing threat of COVID-19, this meeting is being conducted in accordance with a number of executive orders by the governor, including live streamed, but we've been taking public comment throughout since the meeting was posted, both via telephone and email. However, we are still accepting public comment throughout tonight's meeting. So if you have a comment on an item that is on the agenda for this evening and you have not yet weighed in, you are welcome to email public comment at auburn.ca.gov. Thank you, Amy. With that, I'll go ahead and ask that you take the roll, please.
Councilmember Dowden Calvillo.
Present.
Amara.
Present.
Mackey.
Here.
Spokley.
Here.
And Mayor Berlant.
I am here as well. All right, if you'll join me for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, this evening we have a very welcome accommodation that I'm excited to present, and this is to the Protect American River Canyons group, also known as PARC. So as we bring in Eric Peach, who I see we're joining us, and I think maybe we have one other representative tonight, but Eric, good evening and welcome. You're free to unmute yourself and turn your camera on if you're here tonight.
I see him.
All right, Eric, while you work to unmute yourself, there you are. How are you doing, Eric?
Fine.
Well,
Okay.
we are. Thank you for taking the time. For everybody, first, while I read the proclamation, Amy, why don't you go ahead and put on the screen a copy of a photograph of the bus that we're talking about here tonight. So there we go. So here's here's a photograph of Auburn's newest transit bus. I saw it around town and myself really enjoyed the artwork and wondered what it all meant. And so I think tonight will be a good opportunity for us to recognize the Protect American River Canyons folks who helped us design the new graphics on this new bus. So the accommodation tonight reads, whereas Protect American River Canyons PARC is a community-based nonprofit organization located in Auburn that is dedicated to protect the natural and recreational and cultural resources of the North and Middle Forks of the American River through leadership and collaboration. And whereas PARC's mission is to educate elected officials, agencies, and the public to the benefits of protecting the natural, scenic, and recreational resources of the American River watershed. And whereas recently PARC partnered with Auburn Transit to bring further awareness to the conservation area. PARC utilized the expertise of local artists and board member Laurel Math. Hopefully I pronounced that right. And you can correct me, Eric, here afterwards. But Laurel helped create the imagery displayed on the exterior of the transit bus. And whereas Laurel created the masterpiece that not only encapsulates the rich traditions of the Auburn area, but also captures the limitlessness opportunities for meaningful wilderness experiences in our scenic canyons. Now, therefore, I, Daniel Berlant, Mayor of the City of Auburn, on behalf of the City Council, commend PARC for the amazing work they accomplish for the community and beyond, and thank Board Member Laurel for her artwork donated to Auburn Transit. So, Eric, again this evening, thank you. Here's a copy of the accommodation that we'll get into the mail. But Eric, I'll turn it to you if there's anything you'd like to say tonight.
Well, if Amy sees Laurel out there in the wings, she should invite her in because this is about Laurel. She's really the artist. She created these beautiful river scenes of wildlife and animals, the flora and fauna of the canyons, and worked very diligently and very hard on it through a difficult time in her life where her husband, here she is, great, was very ill and in need of a liver transplant.
Wow.
map,
Well,
which she got just recently. So, and Laurel worked on these murals for, she's worked with Park for over 25 years, creating posters and doing the American River Guidebook and the map and everything else. And we asked her, Park did, if she would be interested in doing these bus murals, and approached the city about it as well. Menjel was very gracious, and Maura when she was here and everything else. And Laurel put together these beautiful renderings of the canyons. And let me tell you, she hasn't even started. She hasn't even hit the big mammals yet. Yeah, this summer we saw a mama bear and 2 cubs in the river. That it's on our Instagram site, and so her talents are limitless. So maybe Laurel could say what it means for her to have created these beautiful murals.
Can you hear me?
we can hear you. Thank you, Laurel, this evening for joining us.
Thank you for such an kind words. Those were awesome. And I look forward to opportunities to increase, to put Auburn on the map if I can, because it's a great community and we have a lot to show the rest of the world.
Great. Well, Eric, thank you for all you do with Park, and Laurel, thank you for lending your artwork. I have to say, out of all the transit buses and really out of all the government vehicles in the entire county, this is definitely stands out, and I think helps make Auburn stand out amongst all of our neighbors for the rich treasure that we have in our backyard, and that is our river. So, Laurel, I'm so appreciative of your lending your artwork to our community. So thank you very much. We'll get this proclamation or this commendation in the mail to you.
Thank you so much.
Can I just say one thing?
Yeah, go ahead, Eric.
This could be like phase 1. Park is trying to work to help fine tune the relationship between the city of Auburn and the river. And as we saw with COVID this year, it was just a mess down there with parking and people and everything was just went way out of hand. So there has been no promises or anything, but we'd like to look into the possibility of shuttle buses in the summertime into the confluence area in the peak season. And if you look at something like that, then there's also the possibility of maybe a map panel in town that people could take a picture of and they could do some hikes, or we could even make some specific hiking guides that would relate Auburn to the river and it's their combined history, as the river became more popular with the gold rush and everything else, and Auburn grew. So we feel like there's a lot of opportunity here, and we look forward to working with the city council and with our new city manager, who I'm going to stop by and give him one of our guidebooks and maps soon, so that we can see what the summer brings. So
Great. Thank you, Eric. I think I would speak for the entire council that we're excited for that opportunity. I know we've continued to look at ways to capitalize on all the people who are visiting our canyon, and more importantly, get them an opportunity to stop and support our businesses. And so I think this would be a very unique way of us doing it. And the fact that we now have a green energy bus, electric bus as part of it. I think it just 2 buses. Sorry. I think it just makes it even more of a great opportunity, especially as a lot of the national parks are continuing to move this way. Let's not reinvent the wheel. Let's do something that works. Reduce the amount of traffic through the canyon, the lack of parking. But also provide people an opportunity to stop and shop here in Auburn by using free parking in Auburn, or however that turns out. So, Eric, look forward to that conversation and making that a reality. So thank you.
Okay, well, this spring, we're going to charter the bus and take the city down there for an American River picnic. So we'll let you guys know when that comes.
Okay, we look forward to it. I know I speak for all of us. We all look forward to that for sure. So, Eric, thank you. Laurel, again, thank you. We will get this commendation in the mail.
Thank you.
Moving on to our agenda approval. This is the time set aside for council members and or the public to ask for removal, postponement, or a change to the listed sequence of an agenda item. The agenda will be approved by a roll call of the council. So I'll see if there's anything that anybody would like to pull. Yes, Councilwoman Downing Calvillo.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, because it has not been formally announced, it's my understanding that we are pulling item number 4, the Auburn Municipal Airport Minimum Operating Standards for Aeronautical Activities. That's being pulled from tonight's agenda, correct?
That is correct. Staff will be pulling that item. I was going to pull it at the consent calendar, but we can absolutely do that here. So it is staff's wishes that we postpone this item so that continued coordination and collaboration with various stakeholders out at the airport. So yes, item number 4, the Auburn Airport Minimum Operating Standards will be pulled from the agenda.
I move we approve the agenda with item number 4 of the consent agenda pulled.
Okay, I'm going to ask for public comment, but I'll first see if there's a second supporting that motion.
Second.
Okay, look to the city clerk. Well, first, any other council members want an item moved, changed, or removed? Look to the city clerk. Any yes, Councilmember Spokley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I do have another item, but I'll hold off until we get to the consent calendar.
Okay, sounds good. Amy, any public comment or public request to remove an item?
There's no request to remove an item.
Okay, so back to the motion. I'll go ahead and ask the city clerk to please take the roll.
Councilmember Dowden Calvillo,
Aye.
Amara,
Yes.
Mackey,
Aye.
Spokley,
Yes.
Mayor Berlant.
Aye. All right, the agenda is approved with the postponement of item number 4. So now we are in the consent calendar. All matters under the consent calendar are considered to be routine in nature and will be approved by one blanket motion with a roll call vote. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a person requests specific items to be removed from the consent calendar for discussion and separate action. Any items removed will be considered after the motion to approve the consent calendar. Again, we have postponed item number 4. I'll go to Councilmember Spokley to see if there was another item you'd like to move.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to pull item number 5, the curb ramp rehabilitation project, please.
Okay. Are there any other items any other council members would like to pull for discussion? Okay, not seeing any. I'll look to see the city clerk, see if there's any items from the public that they would like to have removed.
There's not.
Okay, seeing none, I'll go ahead and ask for a motion for items 1, 2, and 3.
I'll move approval of items 1, 2, and 3.
I'll
I'll
second.
second.
Okay, if the clerk will please take the roll.
Councilmember Dowden Calvillo,
Aye.
Amara,
Yes.
Mackey,
Aye.
Spokley,
Yes.
and Mayor Berlant.
Aye. Okay, those items passed unanimously. Moving on to item number 5, the winter 2020 curb ramp rehabilitation project. Councilmember Spokley had asked for this to be pulled, so I'll turn it to you.
I appreciate that, Mr. Mayor. I wanted to just take a moment. We a few of us talk on the council quite a bit about our road rehabilitation efforts and how we're lacking in our expenditures and we're behind in our program. This, however, is a portion of the program that is mandated by the federal government, that when we go and do roadway maintenance work, we also address the ADA compliance issues. So it's not an option for the city to divert funds from this program to do more street overlays, for example. So I see Mengel's on the call. I think that Mengel's doing a great job and the Public Works team is doing a great job doing these repairs, these improvements. It's an absolute requirement from the federal government that we do these as we go through and do our overlay work. It's programmed into our budgets. The numbers seem pretty reasonable. I did notice a big discrepancy, a big variance, I should say, between the low bid and the other 2 bidders. And I just thought I would ask Mengel a quick question on that, if he's available. Mengel, is this difference in price typical given our current times with high material costs, labor costs, all of that? I want to say the low bidder was nearly half of what the high bidder was. Is this kind of typical of
Yeah.
what we're seeing there now in the bidding environment, Mitchell?
We were actually quite fortunate and quite lucky to actually get these prices. I think the reason for that being is that this company is currently doing work for the county, and they were already within the area doing this work. So to add this on kind of, save them mobilization fees and things like that. So we're not necessarily benefiting from cost of scale, but we kind of are, just because they're within our local area doing work, because we weren't anticipating the numbers to be this low, to be completely honest with you.
That's great, Menjul. And just for clarification for folks who might have looked at this item and asked questions, the maps that you had talked about case C, I think it was, repairs, and those are referring back to Caltrans standard ramp configurations. Is that correct, Menjul?
That is correct. We're using Caltrans spec and norm and standards.
Okay. So I'm very happy with the bids. I again, considering that we're paying nearly half the cost of what the high bid came in at. These efficiencies, Menjul, I don't need to tell you this because I know you know, and I know John knows as well, but these efficiencies that we can take advantage of between the city's work and what the county's doing are hugely and critically important for our bottom line. So thank you for doing these ramp bidding, consistent and at the same time as what the county's doing. So those are all the questions I had. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, for allowing me to pull this. I would like to make a motion unless any other council people have comments on this.
Okay, does anybody else have a comment or question from the council? Not seeing any. I'll ask the clerk to see if there's anybody from the public who has any comments.
There's not.
Okay, Councilmember Spoke, I'll bring it back to you then.
I would like to move approval of the, trying to find the recommendation here. Move approval of the 2019-2020 fiscal expenditure for the 88 curb ramp improvement rehabilitation project.
I'll second that.
All right.
I thought this was an informational item only. Is this an action item?
It is, but we pulled it from the consent calendar, so I believe we still need to make a motion.
I think we're just, we're receiving and filing. The motion should be to receive and file the report.
Right. Right.
I revised my motion to say thank you, Menjul.
My pleasure.
Okay, any other comments or questions? Okay, I'll go ahead and ask the city clerk to please take the roll.
Councilmember Dowden Calvillo,
Aye.
Amara,
Yes.
Mackey,
Aye.
Stokely,
Yes.
and Mayor Berlant.
Aye. All right. Thank you, Menjul, for that. Moving on to public comment. This is the time provided so the public may speak to the council on any item that is not on the agenda. We ask that you make your comments as brief as possible. Of course, as I mentioned at the beginning, those comments have been accepted via voicemail as listed on the agenda, as well as via email, as we announced at the beginning. The council cannot act on any of the items that are not included in this agenda. However, the items will be automatically referred to staff. First, I'll start with council members, see if there's anybody from the council that has a public comment. Councilmember Spokley, go ahead.
Mr. Mayor, I was prepared this evening to make a comment in this section of the meeting to request that our city manager figure out a way, and I know there's lots of challenges, and I will qualify that in a moment, but to figure out a way for us to do in-person meetings for the city council moving forward. Ironically, I just had a meeting with the Placer County Flood Control District and Water Conservation District, and we were informed of the actual costs to do a combined in-person / virtual meeting as it relates to staff time, the requirements that are necessary to make sure folks who are still in the high-risk areas and aren't showing up based on their concern levels to public meetings. I do feel it's important for us to try to get back to in-person meetings, because I think we're missing a lot of the public interaction that we might otherwise have in a public setting. But based on what I heard and the costs related to the, meetings, individual meetings, and the challenges that we put on limited city staff and technical folks in our community, I'm going to hold off. But I just wanted to share that with the group, because this pandemic is going to go on for a while, I believe. I do think that we're missing a lot of our community interaction that's important for what we try to do for our community. But after understanding what the actual costs are for in-person meetings and all the technology that's required and complications that's required, and the space that's required, I'm not sure that our current council chambers have enough space to accommodate the social distancing that certainly would be required. I know the new city manager has talked about trying to implement this, and I'm sure those might be some of the reasons why we're still doing the virtual thing. So I look forward to getting back into meetings where I can see each of my fellow council members face to face, but I'm not sure we're quite there yet. I hope to get there soon.
I would just note that city manager and I, when we met last week, had this exact discussion. And for the public's knowledge, we are planning to hold a hybrid city council meeting, in person and virtual, in December, when we do the reorganization of the city council. So I think that city staff are working diligently to figure out a way. I think, as you mentioned, Councilmember Smokely, our chambers compared to the Board of Supervisors, for example, or even some of our fellow cities, is fairly small, and just being able to even provide minimal distancing between the 5 of us, even when there used to be 8 of us at the dais, is a challenge. But John, I don't know if you have anything more you want to expand on, except for recognition of that there you are working on a plan to do that. When that's done, will likely, I would assume, occur sometime after the reorganization. But John, is there anything else you would like to add to that?
No, I would just reiterate the sentiments of really everybody on this. The culture of having a robust public interaction on these things is really important. And the teamwork of the council, the staff, and the many people who come in is really important. And Zoom is extremely convenient, but it is also something that doesn't allow for the interaction. So I will just tell you, staff is going to keep our eyes on what's happening elsewhere. I think ultimately there will be a hybrid of what meetings will look like going forward. I think Zoom is very convenient. Our ability to simulcast on YouTube is extremely convenient. But until we get to that point where it all meets cost and convenience, I think we'll kind of be sitting and we'll bring it back at another time.
Any other comments from the council? Okay, then I will go ahead and turn it to the city clerk to take comments from the public.
Sure. I'll just also note real quick that Cheryl's having computer technical issues, so she'll be back on soon. I have one public comment that's already been received by the council and staff. It was for item 4, which is no longer on the agenda, so the public comment is being shown now. It's lengthy, so we will stick to the rule of a 3-minute limit for.
And as we try to stall a bit to allow Cheryl, we might allow it a little extra time if Cheryl doesn't get on, since we'll need her for the next item anyway. So go ahead, Amy.
If you could keep an eye on attendees.
Yeah, I'm in there right now. I will.
Thank you. Just a second.
And I will note the council did receive this public comment ahead of time and did have an opportunity to review it. And as we mentioned at the very beginning of the meeting, the item being discussed there was pulled from the agenda to allow more community review and input. And so looking to see any other public comment, and seeing none, and we have no more, I will go ahead and close public comment and move to council business. Our first and only item tonight under council business is number 7, the expanding of Pioneer Community Energy Joint Power Authority membership. So I will start with Councilwoman Mackey, who is our representative on Pioneer. And I know we have Don Eckert, the executive for Pioneer, as well as Sam King. But Councilwoman Mackey, why don't I start with you?
Thank you, Mayor Berlant. So I'm going to try and make this as easy as possible for the council members, because we did get a great presentation on October 26th from Pioneer regarding the expansion and why we want to do it. And it was just based on waiting to see what the assessment came back as from our consultant, PEA, Pacific Energy Advisors. And they, of course, did a thorough analysis of the financial part of the connection of having us bring on a whole other county and another city. And the impact they felt was positive. And they recommended to us that the financial strength of Pioneer would increase the margins. It would also improve our balance sheet, and it's going to help mitigate against us having to raise our rates anytime soon. That to me is the most important part of the idea of expanding Pioneer's territory, is that it would make us a little bit more financially viable and help us stabilize our rates for the future for our customers. Then again, of course, there's a lot of other benefits, power supply benefits, increased electricity load, larger power procurement gives us a little bit more ability to find diverse power supply sources. As I talked about before, the legislative and regulatory influence that we would have by increasing our ratepayer amounts, and the larger a CCA is, the bigger voice it has at the state capitol and at the PUC. And then of course, there's always the local jobs and power supply resources. And we would like to invest in power supply projects that will be closer to home. I mentioned last time biomass, and that's something that's very important to us. It would be so wonderful if we could open up one of those lumber yards up in Forest Hill and be able to take all that stuff from the canyon and take it to a biomass plant up in Forest Hill. I mean, it would be so much easier than dumping it in a landfill somewhere, and so much better for our environment. So these are really good reasons, and I think it would give us the ability to do all of the above. And since it is financially feasible to do so, according to our Pacific Energy Advisors, I would hope that this city council would approve the amended JPA and move forward with approving it for the future and sending it on to the PUC for their approval. Now, of course, I think we are the first city to have this on our agenda. Is that correct, Don? Yes. Which puts me in a little bit of an awkward position, because the approval of this, the final approval of this, will be in December, when I am not on Pioneer's board any longer. And tonight I had considered, and I'm still considering, amending the document that we are supposed to sign and deleting the requirement for shared votes. And there isn't a way. I talked to our city attorney today, but if we do that, then that would mean that every other entity down the road would have to amend it and eliminate the shared votes as well. That'd be a little selfish of me, but that is one of my priorities, because if we do amend this JPA and we do include Placerville in it, they will have the largest voting share. So I think it would be probably of interest to all of the board to amend our amended JPA to say that we want to get rid of the shared votes, so the weighted vote. So I'm in a quandary, and I'd like to have some input from the council members on how you feel about this. And then perhaps the person who takes my place on the board could bring this up in December and get the board to agree to eliminating the section in the amended amendment and deleting the shared vote option. So does anybody want to weigh in on that?
Is that on?
Cheryl, where is the section?
Councilwoman Downing Cubio, go ahead.
Sorry, what section are you suggesting the proposed amendment in? And
The section.
or the page?
Section 5. Well, see, in our amended JPA, let's see, in the amendment in our JPA, oh yeah, it's see, the one that you have is, what we have is the amendment to the amended. Then the full JPA agreement is down below. The very last item on the agenda has the full amendment. It has the full amended and restated JPA agreement that we changed from Sierra Valley Energy to Pioneer Energy. But that agreement says on section 5 that paragraph C, that
What's the packet page number?
okay, geez.
I show it on page 5,
No,
not a
On page-
packet number.
oh no,
72.
yeah,
Okay,
it's
I see
way
it.
down.
Okay, so packet page 72, I think Councilwoman Amara mentioned. And
Okay, well, I don't see it I don't see that.
So
I see, anyway, it's section 5 of the JPA. We'd have to eliminate the last sentence that says, upon request of a board member, a weighted vote share would be conducted. And then in section 8, there's this whole section that is paragraph D, deleting the entire paragraph. In D8, we'd have to delete. So that would get rid of the voting shares entirely.
And council member, Murphy?
D.
Yeah, so
Yes.
I also identified one additional section. It's in paragraph 15D. It cross-references the weighted voting in 8D. So I think to effectuate the change, there's a revision to that sentence to say distributed equally to the voting members or something of the like. Deals with distribution of assets after dissolution of the JPA.
So
Section 15B, you're saying, or D?
15D
Oh, yeah.
as in Annie.
Okay, yeah, okay.
so sections 5, 8, and 15D.
Mhm. It's 5C, the last sentence. And then, I'm sorry.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I see.
And then section 8D, deleting the entire paragraph about weighted voting, voting shares. And then now section 15D, which would have to be reworded.
So from a procedural perspective, I guess what I would want to know is right now, what we have before us is the request to approve the joining of Placerville and the County of El Dorado. And so you're saying that this is, since we're going to amend the JPA anyway, that we might as well address the issue on the weighted vote as well.
The problem is that all of the entities are getting the same amendment.
Yeah, so
So-
then my question is that if the council were to discuss that, again, I recognize that all of the agencies, or the, whatever we refer to them, the members would have to pass that same amendment. What happens if they don't? What I don't want to do tonight is to jeopardize the moving forward to allow Placerville and the county of El Dorado to enter. I wouldn't want to do anything that would threaten that expansion. And so my concern is that if we were to pass an amendment, I agree with you, I don't like the weighted vote either, but I would not want to jeopardize this moving forward or delay it tremendously. So that's the concern I
delay
have
it.
with,
Right.
it would delay it because I don't know what the schedules are for the other cities when they're taking this up. So that's my only thought. Again, I agree with you that I would want to address that, but I just don't, I just don't want to jeopardize the passage of the resolution tonight or to delay
So
it for months.
You do agree that you would like to get rid of the weighted vote?
I think that I'm willing to consider that. I just don't know about the timing, that's all. If that's something
Right,
that,
right.
you know, again, I just don't want to jeopardize moving forward and allowing the other agencies or the other city and the county the opportunity to join. And I'm just concerned that if we go down that route, that we are going to cause either a tremendous delay, or what it might do is cause someone to back out, or I'm just concerned about what Pandora's box we might open having that discussion or taking that action tonight.
It might be a discussion down the road in one of these other meetings, but I will tell you that tomorrow night is Rockland. Is that correct, Don?
Yes.
November 17th, the Placer County Supervisors. December 9th is Colfax. December 17th, Pioneer Board votes on it. I don't know where Lincoln is in there, Don.
Lincoln moved to December 8th.
December 8th. Okay. So yes, it goes, this same
I
amendment
understand.
to the JPO goes before all of them.
Mhm.
So anyway,
But then
Donna Calvi, any other questions? Sorry, didn't mean to
I-
stop. So that answers-
yes. And this is part of that difficulty with doing the Zoom meetings.
yeah.
The in person is a little easier from that perspective. But yes, and I mean, again, if we were to make the change, the other jurisdictions, including, you said Colfax is tomorrow, it's too late for them to get an amended version on their agenda. They'd have to make that motion during the meeting, which I think they would be unlikely to do. So it's just, to me, it just seems like this is just not the right timing for that. That's just, again, because I really want to move forward and get these two agencies in. And once they're in, then maybe there will be more power to try to change that weighted vote once we have El Dorado and Placerville in. You don't think so?
Why would El Dorado want to change the weighted vote when they're going to have the largest weighted vote?
Oh, I see what you're saying.
El Dorado County. El Dorado County.
El Dorado County is going to have 36%, and Placer will be at 29%.
Okay, I see your point.
El Dorado County will have the largest weight in votes, and I don't think a brand new entity coming into our JPA should have the largest weight in votes. And now somebody made the statement that out of 100 votes we took last year, 1 vote was a weighted vote. Actually, there was 2, but they were the most important votes we took.
Yes.
Okay, I
So-
guess I apologize. And, you know, again, as a newish council member, not having been, you know, on when we first established the board and so forth, I didn't realize that it was that much of a weight. I thought it was a 1 to 2. So
Well,
can
we will be-
you tell me a little bit more about what, because I guess how do they determine the weight of that vote? It's based
By
on what?
energy-
Population?
Energy sales.
Energy sales.
Yes, energy sales. Auburn has 3 points. Well, Auburn has right now 6.31%. We will have 3.75%, but it's not really Auburn I'm concerned about. It's, you know, if we combined all of these other entities, the cities and Placerville, we would not have as much weight as Placer County and El Dorado County. So they could be making all the decisions.
Okay.
Not-
I see what you're saying now. I didn't understand.
I need to really quickly add that the one contentious vote that went to weighted measures was on the rate increase or not
Right.
to do a rate increase. So
Right.
it is important to Auburn for us to
Yes.
discuss this right now.
Yes.
Okay. All right. I didn't understand the significance. I guess I didn't understand that.
And if I was going to be on the Pioneer board when all of this was taken up, I wouldn't have any problems with just moving on tonight. But I am concerned. And I mean, I don't know who the next representative is going to be. Wink, wink. I hope it's Matt. Because he knows, he's been involved in all this. So anyway, I'll stop there, and if there's any other questions.
Councilwoman Donna Calvillo, did you have any other questions, or do you want to wait for now?
I'll wait for now. Thank you.
Okay, Councilwoman Amara, I know you had your hand up. Go ahead.
Oh, yeah. And then Cheryl clarified a lot. So Cheryl, I guess you clarified, and I think I hear you saying that, you know, I defer to you. You've been on there, you know it. So this is very important, you feel.
Yes, very,
Okay.
very important.
Now, I guess my other question is if it passed, the next entity will be which city then? It'll be
Rockland.
Rockland. So
Tomorrow night.
will they go along with it then?
Is that right, Don? Rockland's tomorrow night?
Yeah, Rockland is tomorrow night. Yes.
Okay.
If we give them a heads up tomorrow, is that, Cheryl, do you think that everyone will go along with this?
I don't know.
So I think what I hear you saying is this proposal that we have here tonight will come to them, or will the previous proposal, I mean, will they both go to them and then they can decide? I'm confused. So
No, they'll all be getting the same, and I'm sure Rockland's already noticed their meeting. So
Yes.
they've got the same JPA agreement that we have tonight. They wouldn't get our amended agreement. They'll have the same one that's on our agenda right now.
Okay, so I guess my question is, and maybe this is for Gary and Cheryl. So if we do decide to amend it tonight, which I'm leaning toward, then tomorrow night, they discuss it and decide they want to wait or not to. What happens? What's next step? It's then you have two different contracts, or two different agreements.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so what I would add to that is that the agenda is gone out, surely, for some of the other agencies. All the voting members are approving this, but that doesn't preclude adopting a slightly different version of the amendment. So if you look at Auburn's agenda this evening, it says amendment number 1 to the agreement. It does talk about one thing the amendment does, but there's broad enough notice under the Brown Act in the agenda to amend it this evening, as you all might do or are considering, and other agencies will do. So part of it will depend on exactly the wording of the agenda that's gone out for the other agencies. If it's very limited, it could potentially restrict their adoption of it. If it's broad and says amendment number 1, it wouldn't necessarily prevent it. You're still on a short deadline though, with 24-hour notice, communications to the other agencies. So those are practical problems, I think, on how this would work.
Okay, and then I guess, Cheryl, the other question is, if we're successful, I guess then the proposal would go to El Dorado. I mean, I guess they'd either have to accept this format or not. Is that the idea?
Well, El Dorado's already agreed to to moving forward. This is just getting our board, everybody on Pioneer board, to implement this, to move it forward to the PUC.
Okay.
Is that correct, Don?
Yeah, and I completely appreciate the conversation tonight. I'd maybe just offer another perspective is I could also look at this as a no regrets move tonight to approve the JPA, because there's another issue that is being discussed, and that's called a buy-in, where there would be some sort of a differential, let's say, rate that El Dorado and Placerville would pay as opposed to the Pioneer folks, as a way of putting a little bit extra in the pot for the startup capital that all of you risked in forming Pioneer. And that issue basically was deferred until January, with the idea that we could move forward with the JPA amendment as you have it tonight, along with the other councils, to be able to file at the end of December with the CPUC and bring everybody online. However, we're just filing with the CPUC at the end of this year. That doesn't mean really that we're serving load or anything like that. We have about 90 days between when we file with the CPUC and when we get approval. And really in that time frame, the issue of the buy-in can be decided. And I could also say there's another route here tonight, which is you could also table the voting share at that same time. And if El Dorado and Placerville are not happy with the buy-in, or they're not happy with the voting shares, they can walk out. We can walk out. We still have a 90-day window to move forward or not. But the driver tonight is, if we don't move forward with the JPA and get the paperwork to the CPUC at the end of this year, then for sure I know I can't bring El Dorado and Placerville online in 2022. So just another perspective. Thank you for your time on that.
Councilwoman Amar, any other questions?
No, thank you.
Councilmember Spokley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I was sitting in on the meeting that Cheryl happened to be not able to attend, and this issue came full freight in front of us, where we all, I think from a city standpoint, all thought that the changes, I won't say all, because I think there was one city that also was thinking that they didn't want to raise rates to advance or accelerate the payback to the debt that the agency has. And it came down to the two county votes, and I think one other city, if I recall correctly, declined to agree with the rest of the cities. If we move forward with weighted voting, and I'm open to hearing Dawn and Sam's responses back, but if we move forward to annex them into Pioneer, which I do think is a good thing, we further minimize our opportunity, in my opinion, to bring this issue up at a later date. Right now, we're one of 5 jurisdictions involved with Pioneer Energy. We already heard from Councilwoman Mackey that when El Dorado County comes into Pioneer Energy, they're going to be the 800-pound gorilla, so to speak. And if the counties got together and said, we don't want to modify the way we vote, then the county's voice is that much more magnified. So I again, I think this is a good idea. I do want to move this forward because I'm aware of what Mr. Eckert just mentioned, that there are timeframes that we need to be mindful of. But I do think that as we expand, the weighted vote issue becomes more of a problem for small jurisdictions. And as I stated before, our constituents are just as important to me as county constituents to the county. So I want to do whatever I can to make sure that we're not further minimizing our impact in voting on this JPA to the greatest extent I can. And I guess, Dawn, a question for you, and Dawn or Sam, or maybe even Cheryl, the weighted vote conversation, I got to imagine has come up before with the board. Those are meetings that I haven't necessarily been in attendance at. But what's the general consensus of the current board on removing this component from the JPA bylaws?
Yeah, thank you for the question. And I also invite Councilwoman Mackey's comments as well, because you've actually been with the board longer than I have. But I feel, I'm just, this is just speculation. I don't think Rockland is probably there where they want to get rid of voting shares. Placer County may not be there as well. And the rest of the folks, I don't have a comment either way on. So I feel I don't know if it would be a consensus or unanimous amongst the board that they all want to get rid of voting shares. But I really think I want to make it part of an issue. To your point about expansion, is that I do feel that this expansion will invite other discussions on expansion, and we do need to sort this out and the buy-in and maybe a few other items, and really have an extensive expansion policy discussion with the Pioneer Board in January. But to answer your question directly, I know if I'm speculating, I don't think it's unanimous that the board would like to get rid of voting shares.
So
Okay.
I'll speak to that. I know that one supervisor is in favor of getting rid of the weighted vote. I know that there are at least 2 city entities that are in favor of getting rid of the weighted vote. And the other supervisor will be gone in January. So we will have a new supervisor who will make that decision. And I've already discussed it with her. So, but we'll see. I mean, I think the argument can be made that since we were first, that there's no way that El Dorado County should have a heavier weighted vote than all the rest of us. And that the county will come over to that way of thinking, in my opinion. So that's how I feel. But I do know for sure there's 2 cities, maybe 3, that would be in favor of changing the weighted vote, and 1 supervisor.
So Dawn, if we move forward with the motion that's in front of us, or the item that's in front of us, is there, I think I heard you mention that there's conversations that could be had at a later date. Is there are we losing leverage if we don't try to at least amend this motion, or move forward a motion with a recommendation that we at some sort of date certain have a conversation about the weighted vote thing? I mean, what are our timeframes that we're
Yeah, so thank you. So I really intend to, we're going to have 3 new board members. Unfortunately, we're losing Cheryl next month, but we're going to have 3 new board members in January. We're going to start that 90-day clock with the CPUC, starting January 1st. And I really want to bring this expansion policy, including voting shares, including buy-in, and resolve that at January's board meeting. Have it with the board, public forum, and then it's clear with this expansion as well as future expansion, what the rules are regarding voting and buy-in, and solve that in January. I don't want that to go past January's board meeting, because, well, El Dorado and Placerville will also want to hear that, and they'll have to make a decision whether they want to move forward or not. And I really think from a leverage viewpoint, I don't think you lose all that much by waiting till January, just because all sides can still walk away if they're not happy with this. So, until we're out there buying power for Placerville and El Dorado, and that's not going to happen until after the CPUC gives us the okay, we got that 90-day window to work this out. Again, if we don't move forward with the amended JPA as it is tonight, I do think we jeopardize bringing them online at all. But I certainly think we have leverage first of the year. And again, I make a commitment tonight to let you all know we want to discuss this at January's board meeting and hopefully resolve this.
So Don, I appreciate that. If Auburn is the only one concerned with this issue, and we make our case, and the rest of the current JPA board votes against us, it's over, right? I mean, we're moving along with a weighted vote. Am I missing something?
That's how the governance works. Yes.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm anxious to hear. I think the mayor hasn't spoken on this yet, but I do think that we need to move this forward. But I do also think that we need to amend the motion to move this forward with some sort of a caveat that we expect a vigorous conversation amending the weighted vote scenario, or flat out we want to include it. So I'll kind of throw that out there for everybody to think about. I did have one other question, because I had to go to the Pioneer Energy Board website to find the impact assessment. Has any of the other council members had a chance to see that document? Because that's kind of the basis of what we're deciding here tonight.
And if it would, sorry to interrupt, if it would help, I do have a shortened version of the presentation. If you want to take 10 minutes and go through it, if you think that doesn't help for tonight, we'll just email it out to everyone.
Yeah, no, it was going to be my number one question. So unless I see any nods of no from a majority of the council, which I don't, Don, why don't we go ahead and give you access, and you can share your screen and go ahead and give us that presentation, because I know at least for me, that's an important element, and I would assume for the rest as well. So Don, I'll let you keep going.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This to work. Can you see the screen?
Yes, we can.
Okay, good. Okay, so just to be clear, everything in blue was the area that we're looking to expand to. So this would be incremental roughly 65,000 meters. That would take us to about 160 meters in total, 160,000 meters in total from the 93,000 we have now, and an extra close to 700,000 megawatt hours per year in energy served, which would take us from about 1.1 million megawatt hours to 1.8. The significance of that is that gives me an extra 70,000 meters or so to spread that risk that we have that Councilwoman Mackey talked about earlier with regards to risk to rates. And I think this expansion really gives us that shock absorption to power supply and other sort of pressures on the finances, that we can keep the rates stable. This was the key assumptions used by Pacific Energy Advisors that Councilwoman Mackey mentioned earlier, and talked about the customer accounts and energy usage, rate class composition. So currently it's about 57% residential, with the expansion that's actually El Dorado County's is a lot more of the residential. So when you blend it together, moved it up to almost 60% residential and the various rate classes. And then here's the base case. And this is why I hope we can move forward on this tonight from the utilities perspective. When I look at the current case, and this was, we took the rates out to the same every year for the next 3 years, 23, 24, 25. And you'll see a slight growth in the operating revenues. The rates were the same. All we're assuming there in the current case is about 0.5% load growth. And then the power supply, we have hedged positions, but whatever was not hedged, we marked those to the current price curve. We also have our last installment of debt in fiscal year 23. And, you know, with or without expansion, under the base case scenario, the utility is still contributing to reserves. It's still able to, maintain the rates. And so it's not like we have to do expansion for the financial health of the utility. But again, it gives us so much more ability to absorb price shocks and at the same time start delivering on a lot of the value plays that many of you want. For instance, I feel like right now we're in that trench, if you will, where we're having to every year, our number one priority is to keep the rates the same, but we have pressures with the power charge and difference adjustment. We have pressures on power supply. I am seeing, reduced load from the COVID-19, and we don't know what that new economy is going to look like, and other pressures that we have on the finances that it makes me nervous to spend a lot of money on biomass. It makes me nervous to get into a lot of detailed discussions on development rates to incentivize businesses if our number one priority is rates and we don't have all that much margin to absorb those shocks. And so when I look at the expansion, you're talking about an $8 million difference per year in the bottom line versus our current case. That's $8 million that is added to the bottom line that gives us a very strong case to not be talking about rates over the next 3, 4, 5 years. And at the same time, start delivering on those value plays that we need to do. We also, here's projected reserves, and I wouldn't get caught up on in FY25, we're going to have 57 million in reserves versus 33. A lot will change between now and 2025, but this just gives you an idea of that extra cushion that we would have to be able to absorb those price shocks, keep the rates the same. And it's significant. Here's a stress test that we did. And there's one of 3 stress tests to say, okay, this still makes sense. So here's a high opt-out. What we assumed here was that if we expand El Dorado and the messaging just doesn't go well, and we have a 25% opt-out rate, just keep in mind, Pioneer is around 10 to 11% based on the various city or town we're serving. If we were to have a 25% opt-out, does it still make sense to move forward? Well, it does. In this case, you have less revenues because of the opt-outs, but you also have less power supply costs because of less load. And instead of having 8 million a year, if things go horribly wrong in the messaging, you're still looking at close to 7 million a year in bottom line impact versus the current case. Here's another stress test. If power supply costs were to shoot up 25% from where they are now, year over year over year, or keeping that 25% shock over the next 3 years the same. Well, under the current case, even though none of the power supply for El Dorado is hedged, and we would mark that all up 25% higher, the power supply increase would also impact Pioneer as well, because we're not 100% hedged today, 3 years from now. And you can see that because our margins are tight, you got that price shock on power supply. We're now dipping into reserves, and we're having that conversation of, do we want to raise rates, or are we okay dipping into reserves? But I can guarantee you we're not having those discussions about economic development rates and biomass, because now we're playing defense, worrying about where the rates are going to go. On the expansion, the numbers are still not great either, but it's still better than the current case. Again, it talks about that shock absorption if power supply was to go crazy. And here's another stress test. And this is actually what I would consider the most likely scenario, would be a situation where the power charge and difference adjustment goes up. At the same time, PG&E rates come down, or maybe it's one or the other. But in this case, we're looking at a 7% reduction in rates. And just keep in mind that the situation that Pioneer is in versus, let's say, Roseville Electric. So in Roseville Electric, you can change the rates. And let's say you raise the price, as an example, on a small business owner in Roseville Electric's territory. That business owner can make a decision of, I'm going to invest in energy efficiency, or I'm going to move out of the territory. In my case, if I'm not competitive with PG&E, that small business owner can spend 90 seconds on the phone and go back to PG&E. So I have to be competitive. And in this case, if the PG&E rates were to come down, I'm now dipping well into reserves, and now we're definitely having a rates discussion. With expansion, and here's really what I say is the strongest play for me on expansion. With the expansion, if I have to lower my rates, I'm still staying even on the bottom line and contributing to reserves. And we can keep those rates, we can stay competitive and keep those rates lower without having sort of volatility, and every 6 months or so, I'm having to adjust rates again. So as has been talked about, the governance is we're looking at one person from Placerville, one person from El Dorado County. So even though El Dorado County is going to have the highest voting share, and we'll see that in a moment, they are not going to have 2 seats on the board such as Placer County does. They would have, the new folks would have 2 seats out of 9. And although there was a very important decision made on rates that went to a voting share mechanism, 99 out of 100 decisions are not gone to a voting share mechanism. And you can see it would be 2 out of 9 folks. And then on the voting share, as Councilwoman Mackey referenced, the current to the left and how expansion would look on the right. Another, comment I would make here is that, yes, El Dorado County would have the #1 voting share. And if you want to look at Placerville as well, that's 40%. But I also would say that the founding members would have 60% still. And so if something went haywire with El Dorado and Placerville, we're still the majority share. And I also want to, remind folks that we went through a lot of conversations with Placerville and El Dorado to make sure that they want the same out of this utility that all of you do. I'm not looking to expand into an area that wants 100% carbon-free energy and doesn't care about the rates, because now I'm just introducing conflict. So it was very important to not just financially this makes sense, but also making sure strategically this makes sense, and that these new folks are in line with what you want out of Pioneer. And everything that I've heard aligns very well. And then just on the timeline. So yeah, tonight we're speaking with you folks. Tomorrow would be Rockland. Lincoln actually got moved to December 8th. And then also tomorrow, El Dorado County would be voting to join, as well as Placerville. And then the other dates, so on and so forth. But, it's a very tight timeline. To the extent that we can move forward with the JPA, it gets us to where we can file the paperwork with the CPUC. And I still believe we have that 90-day window between when the CPUC says yes or no, and we're still negotiating, and we can fix this voting share issue as well as the buy-in and whatever other issues that come up. And at any time, both sides can walk away. But just keep in mind that I feel we'll get through this, because there's $8 million on the table for Pioneers folks, and there's also about $10 million on the table for El Dorado. If they were to walk away from this, they're giving up roughly $10 million a year in ratepayer savings. We're giving up $8 million. I think we'll find a way to make this work. But if we halt the process tonight, then really everything's off the table, and the best I could hope for is 2023, and I don't know if El Dorado and Placerville start to look elsewhere. So it works both ways. And again, our recommendation would be to move forward, but happy to take any questions. Thanks for your
Great,
time.
thank you, Don. I'm going to bring it back to Councilmember Spokley before I return back to the council for additional questions on this item. Councilmember Spokley, any additional questions?
Yeah, Don, thank you very much for running through the presentation. That is on the Pioneer Board website. So I do appreciate you running through it for us. The question I have, I think I asked it before, that 90-day period you said where folks could walk away, that's a Pioneer Energy in its current configuration. They have 90 days to take this conversation up about the weighted votes in that time frame. And it's just the current configuration of Pioneer Energy that.
Yes. So as of when we
Is that
filed the
the case,
paperwork
right?
with the CPUC, El Dorado and Placerville do not have 40% voting share on January 1. That would only happen after the CPUC gives approval.
Okay. That's all the questions I have for now, Mr. Mayor.
They will not be on the board until after the CPUC gives approval.
Great, thank you.
If I could just,
Yeah, go ahead, Sam.
yeah, if I could just add to that. So the 90-day period we came up with is basically the latest that the commission has to respond. So it's like a limit of time. They can respond earlier or not, but I think the point is you're not locking into any by approving this resolution as it is today. You're not locking yourself into anything. It's open to discussion, as Don mentioned, and so that's where the 90-day comes from. Is like we've seen that's as long as they can take. But I just want to take this moment to stress one more time that the both El Dorado County and Placerville have the reason why they wanted to join Pioneer, and they've even sent letters, and they've talked about it, and even at the Pioneer board meeting, Supervisor John Heidel from El Dorado County showed up to really say that their attraction to Pioneer was that there were very similar interests in terms of what the JPA's goals were in terms of focusing on stable, competitive rates, local jobs, and different things, because they talked to SMUD, they talked to Valley Clean Energy and other ones, and they felt very drawn to Pioneer for the reasons that they felt very close in terms of thinking to Pioneer. So just wanted to throw that back out there again.
Great, thank you. Actually, I'm going to come to Councilwoman Mackey for questions for Don, and then I'll go back through the whole council for any additional questions from Don as well. So Council Member Mackey, go ahead.
Okay, I just want to clarify the 90 days. The 90 days is what we have from the end of December till the CPUC approves this implementation. This is not something that the Pioneer Board has stipulated 90 days. That's the PUC's 90 days. So if we approve this today and get everything in before December 31st, the changes that we are going to want to vote on are going to have to be talked about at least before December 31st. So the Pioneer Board in December is going to have to make some decisions on voting shares and whether we're going to make a plan in January at all. They're going to have to do that. These aren't things that the Pioneer Board has discussed doing. I just want to clarify that. So whoever the voting member is for Auburn who votes on December 17th, they could bring up this voting shares issue then in hopes that it could be included in the final agreement with El Dorado County and Placerville. Is that correct, Don?
Yeah, you're absolutely right.
I'm not comfortable with saying, oh, we can just wait till January and start doing this. I think we have to get that discussion at the board level, Pioneer Board level, and ask everybody then and make the decision then if that's how we're going to move forward. So I wanted to be sure that this city council understood that.
And
That we can't just wait till
I'll make
January.
a commitment to support you on that as well.
All right, thank you, Don.
Any other questions, Councilmember Mackey?
That's it.
Okay, I'm going to come back around like I mentioned. Councilwoman Downing Calvi, any follow-up questions for Mr. Eckert or King?
So if we moved forward, I mean, if we were to make an amendment now, it's going to delay the process. We've got councils that are taking action on what's proposed now today. I guess I have comments more than I do questions, Dan. Do you want
Why don't you
comments?
hold on to your comments?
Okay.
That's right.
Yeah, I don't really have any questions. I think I'm very clear. I guess the only question I would have is that what are the consequences of the city taking action to make the amendment tonight? It sounds like it would just.
I can answer that. It would mean that every other city and the county would have to make the same amendment in order for this to move forward.
But what I mean is, and I understand that, that was initially what my concern was, from the onset. But I'm just saying that is if the city were to make that amendment, then in order for it, if the other cities took action and approved the amendment as proposed, but only Auburn had something different, then what does that mean?
It wouldn't go,
We would hold it up. It would
we
hold
would
up.
hold it up,
Okay.
yes.
Yeah. Okay. So that's really the only question that I had. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Councilwoman Amari, any follow-up questions?
Thank you. I couldn't get to my mute button. So basically, Councilwoman Cavillo asked the same question, and I just want to reiterate, reconfirm what I heard, Don. Then if we were to, which I think is a very smart suggestion, and I'm inclined to go with it, if we were to amend what is before us tonight, the players, is there a strong possibility and a high likelihood then that it would hold up the process? Is that what I hear you saying?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. That's my only question.
Great, thank you. Councilmember Spokely, any follow-up question?
Yeah, no, I don't. I'm sorry. I thought I was on mute. No, I don't. Just maybe comments. Thank you.
Okay, great. I just have a couple follow-up questions. Don, at the very beginning when you started to present, you mentioned, and I didn't capture what the unit of measurement was, but that we would be increasing from 1.1 to 1.8. What was the measurement?
Oh, 1 million megawatt hours.
Million megawatt hours. All right. I've heard that there's some discussion going on right now with Rockland and Lincoln possibly joining Roseville Electric. Is there any truth to that? And has there been any discussion of them pulling out of Pioneer? And if so, what would be the impact to this whole deal with or without El Dorado?
So I don't want to speculate on where that would go. I think I believe Rockland has expressed to me their desire to join Roseville Electric, but the issue is getting PG&E to actually sell the system to Roseville Electric, or who would raise the bonds to buy that. I think it's a several $100 million transaction, and to be quite honest with you, I think the opportunity to have that type of talks with PG&E probably passed, and you're going to have to wait for the next bankruptcy to do that. But so I don't think it's highly likely that they are moving over to Roseville Electric. And no one from Rockland has specifically said to me that we're planning to leave Pioneer.
Okay. Curious if Rockland though and Lincoln, if they do pull out of Pioneer, and in this action, El Dorado and Placerville though have been added, does that potentially keep Pioneer stabilized? Would the impact to Auburn, for example, be as great if those two large cities pulled out? If we still had this added increase through El Dorado and Placerville? And I mean, maybe some of that's a crystal ball for you, but just curious, is there a balance of the risk by adding them, and if that potential was to really occur in South Placer?
Yeah, so I think, thank you for the question. I think if Rockland were to just theoretically leave and Lincoln, if I go back to my slide here real quick, I think you would be looking at roughly the same or slightly less than the addition of El Dorado and Placerville, because El Dorado County just brings such a large load to us. So I do look at that as if that scenario were to happen, this does mitigate that.
All right. I have one question for Councilmember Mackey. I completely understand the emphasis you're putting on the weighted vote, and I'm in complete agreement that I'd like to see that changed. Of course, we are a smaller member, so of course, it could be perceived by the larger members that we're just using this as an opportunity. However, I 100% am in agreement with you, not just in the past situations where the weighted vote was used, but in this scenario where El Dorado could be in somewhat of the driver's seat over Placer. Though again, looking at the numbers, that they don't have a majority. But just curious, based on some of the comments that, and maybe it was the insinuation that I heard, the fact that Placer County as a whole would retain the majority. Does that ease up any of your concerns, or do you still believe that getting rid of the weighted vote is the number one priority?
I believe one entity, one vote. And it's not the number one priority. It's an important priority, but it's not number one. Financial stability is really important as far as I'm concerned. But the weighted vote is important in the fact that especially if it's a 9-board entity, people come to vote on a board, one vote, one person. They're representing their community. And that's the way it should be. I mean, a lot of us sit on committees and commissions that Auburn's a little piece of that, but we still get our one vote. And that to me that's how I feel about it. I just feel like it's important because of that. I just wanted to address your thing about Lincoln and Rockland leaving. Number one, Lincoln's got enough financial problems. I don't think they want to try and buy any PG&E infrastructure. But if they were to leave, they'd have to pay a PCIA charge to Pioneer. And that would be good for us. So that wouldn't make sense for them to do that. I think that would be one thing. And I just think that if we're going to have, number one, it's a lot of time. This is another issue. A person that sits on this board, it's an extraordinary amount of time given for a council member to spend on this board, more than any of the other boards and commissions. It's because there's so much information that you have to learn. It's a different type of board than you've ever been on before, but yet it's very important to our community. And why does anybody want to sit on this board if their vote is watered down at any time? I mean, why would Auburn or Colfax or even Loomis want to sit on this board or even be a part of this if our votes don't count in reality? So to me, it's really important that we get rid of this weighted vote for that reason, for those reasons. Anyway.
I appreciate that. Curious, and maybe this is more of a procedural question for the group, but I'll ask you just since I have the opportunity. So if we move the amendment forward as presented tonight, would we be able to, and would there be interest in either, whether it's that we provide direction to you as our member, obviously, to push this to your Pioneer board? Would we send a letter, asking the other councils tonight, separate action from this amendment, but asking them to direct their member on the Pioneer board as well to ensure that in the December meeting that this is a discussion item? And I guess I asked it twofold or threefold now. Could you bring forward an item that puts it onto the agenda so that you can have the discussion, at your very next meeting and not wait till January, like you said, where now it's too late? And I agree, even if El Dorado County has a vested interest in this, why give up something once you're joined? I mean, even if that's their case, they may have a new makeup of a board as well, come the results of the election. I know at least one of their seats has not been decided. So I'm right there with you that it needs to be done sooner. But any thoughts on how we could do this without holding back the amendment as written?
Yeah, I think that it could be an item that we could have for discussion and possible action at the next Pioneer Board meeting, which would be my last meeting. And I could make the suggestion then to the board members that this is brought up at our meeting, and we didn't want to hold up the amendment or moving forward with this JPA, this amended JPA agreement for the CPUC to consider. But we could bring it up at the next meeting, and I could tell them exactly the motion I wanted to make, but didn't make because of the fact that I didn't want to hold this up. So that's a good suggestion, Daniel. And then in December, if it comes back, then perhaps during that discussion, the Pioneer Board member could, you know, make a motion and they could pass it in December, you know, to get rid of the weighted vote.
Okay. Councilmember Spokely, did you have a follow-up question?
Yeah, we have another meeting in November, so, or has that been?
No, we do. We do.
Yeah, we have another meeting. The city council does. Pioneer is on the 19th.
I
And
mean,
then,
we're unfortunately the first ones out of the chute in the schedule.
Right.
And I'm in agreement with Councilwoman Mackey that the weighted vote is an important thing for us to talk about at this time. We could agree to continue this until our next council meeting to wait to see what the other groups do and with follow-up out to them to see if there's any traction here. I mean, I was running some quick numbers based on those percentages from each of the counties, both pre-merger and post-merger. And quite clearly after the merger, if Placer County and El Dorado County want to go a particular direction, they've got 67 or 66% of the vote. If Placer County pre-merger right now wants to do something, then they need one of the cities in the previous instance. And I agree with Dawn. This has not come up often, or rarely, but it came up on a very important, very important vote for the organization, I believe. And between Rockland and Placer, they ended up with, the votes they needed, 51% of the vote.
Yep.
Any other
Barely
questions
51.
Any other questions from the council before we move to comment? Yeah, Councilwoman Mar, go ahead.
Okay, one other question maybe for Gary. Would it be possible to, and does it seem reasonable to the rest of the city council, to amend it such that we can put in there, maybe Cheryl can answer this, that those sections, we agree, but want to, and I don't know how we do this, want to have it go up for a vote December, whenever that meeting is. Is there, I guess I'm trying to craft some sort of timeline where the present sitting board has to address our concern here with regard to the weighted vote. I don't know what that looks like.
Yeah, you certainly could add language to the resolution requesting such a meeting and what would happen at it. In terms of forcing that meeting to happen, I don't think you could add that to the agreement to force it. I think it would be something that the JPA board would bring up.
Okay, so that's, I guess that's something that maybe we could consider. I don't know what the rest of the board thinks about that. So anyway, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Hey, I just want to reiterate that our next meeting is the 23rd, and it is according to the schedule presented. It's before council even considers the item. It's before the Pioneer Board meets on December 17th, and it's before the CPUC filing due at the end of the year. So.
Okay, with Councilwoman Calvillo, Donna Calvillo, go ahead.
Just a question for Commissioner Spokely. you had made the suggestion that we continue this item until that November 23rd meeting with the intent of seeing whether or not there would be any other support from our sister agencies. Is that correct?
Yes, with the additional comment, Alice, that we reach out to the other cities and county to see if they are interested in having a amendment to include the weighted voting requirement.
And this is, I guess I have a question then for Don. Then if the council were not to take action on this tonight, the other, I mean, we have Rockland that's already scheduled for tomorrow. I don't have that. Who else is up this week? I mean, I wonder if there's even time to have, that kind of conversation with them. Can you share that schedule with us again, that you had it in the presentation that told us the dates that each agency was going to consider the amendments?
Can you see that on the screen?
No.
Oh,
I can tell you. Rockland is tomorrow night. Board of Supervisors is November 17th. There we go.
Okay, yeah.
Lincoln got moved to December 8th.
Yeah.
Lincoln's December 8th.
Yeah. So the reality is that, I think we don't know what Rockland would do. And I don't think that any of us know. And I think Councilman Mackey, you had mentioned that there was one supervisor that is going along the same lines that we are, but there's one that is not. So it seems like we already kind of know where those two are. So delaying it, we're not going to, I guess it would just be what Colfax. Yeah.
Well, we haven't really had the discussion at the board level about the weighted vote, have we?
Sure.
No, we have not.
And I'm not sure, that both of the supervisors wouldn't be in agreement to change the weighted vote scenario, given the fact that El Dorado County would have a bigger share of the weighted vote. So, I mean, I think we need to put it on the next Pioneer Board meeting as a discussion item, as an action item, and see where we go from there, Don. And then if the board agrees to it, then we can amend that JPA agreement before it goes to the PUC.
Yeah, I think I was just going to add, from a timing perspective, as long as we get this, as long as every member agency votes on this before the December 17th Pioneer Board meeting, we can make this work.
Yeah. I don't know, Mr. Mayor, are you ready for comments?
Well, yes. Let's bring it to the public comment first, and I'll ask the city clerk to see if there's any comments from the public on this item.
There's no public comment on this item.
Okay, well then I'll just go back in the order we've been doing questions. So Councilwoman Downham Calvillo, go ahead with your comments.
Thank you. So, honestly here, I think, we have a great opportunity for our constituency, for our community. We know that there are several benefits of expanding our JPA. Again, we talked about the financial strength. We talked about the supply benefits, our negotiating power from a legislative and a regulatory perspective, and then also with our local jobs and power supply resources. And I think that those are all critical components and provide our ratepayers, our constituency with absolute benefits. And what I would prefer to do at this point in time is to take action on the proposed amendments, or to take action on the amendments as proposed, but then to include a separate motion that would be to direct Member Mackey, because you sit on the board, to request that this item, the discussion of the weighted vote, be calendared for the Pioneer Board's next meeting in December or November, whenever is most appropriate. And with the language stating that the city of Auburn, and this is of course that my colleagues agreed, feel very strongly about that discussion and ensuring that we have a 1-to-1 vote. So I think that we can, you know, in that motion, again, I would suggest that we make the motion to approve as amended, and then to take a second motion with the directive, with that direction. And so I would be prepared, once everyone's had a comment, an opportunity to comment, to formulate that for the purposes of the record. But I think that, and you know, again, that's the direction I'd like to go. I think that we get the biggest bang for our buck for our constituency. I respect the 1-to-1 vote. I think that we need to do that, but I just don't want to hold this up. I mean, I think that this is more important to get this through and not hold it up, just from my own perspective. So thank you. That's all I'm going to say for right now.
Great, thank you. Councilwoman Amara.
Thank you, Mayor Berlant. So I agree. I think there's this is a great opportunity. We've seen the advantages. We've had a presentation, the last meeting, this meeting, we've talked about it. We've studied it. I'm supportive. I believe it has to go through. I'm not interested in holding it up. However, I'm interested in putting whatever is the pleasure of our attorney or the council or the council. I think we do need to put something, if not in this agreement here, something along the lines of a strong letter indicating that we are, even though we're agreeing to it, want to discuss and have a vote to eliminate the weighted vote. So preferably, I would like to see it in this document, because it seems to me that we're voting in favor of a weighted vote, and then we're turning right around and want to eliminate it. So if we could put something in this document, I would feel better, but I would like to hear the rest of the council on that.
Great, thank you. Councilmember Spokely.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Obviously, timing is critical here. We're at the end of the year and we're hearing this important item before us. The timeframes for me, based on this council meeting and our next council meeting, are less critical. But I'm not convinced that delaying this is going to gain us any real ground. There's Rockland that's meeting tomorrow. Lincoln's been pushed off. I don't know what El Dorado County and the Placerville Council have really anything to do with this conversation, but they're meeting tomorrow. Board of Stoops, I think, is an important consideration, because frankly, the way I understand it, if they can get one other larger city, either Rockland or Lincoln, to agree with them, they get the vote. No, I take that back. It would have to be Rockland and Placer to agree to this amendment to unweight the votes. I think I agree with Councilwoman Mackey that Placer County ought to be open to this idea based on the fact that they're going to lose their weighted significance on this. But I am also a firm believer that, you know, our constituents matter, and one vote should be one vote. I understand why the county set it up this way when these bylaws were all set up, because they were the one fronting all the money, but now we're all in and we're playing this game, and obviously not a game. We're in this together, and we're bringing new people in. I would hate to see us become a even less sequential vote without dealing with this weighted situation. So I'm in favor of pushing this off till the next vote. I think I've heard from the rest of the council that they're in favor of moving forward with the language in it that says that it'll be discussed at the next board meeting of Pioneer, and we would have time to revisit this issue. But we, after the reorg that happens in December, I mean, we would have to do it we're just out of time. So I guess I'm still in favor of holding off until our next meeting, which is 2 weeks from tonight, to take action on this. I'm fully in favor of it. I think it's beneficial to our constituents and to our current Pioneer Energy group, all of our ratepayers. I'm one of them. But this weighted vote issue, just because I was in the room when we got, it took a while. They had to figure out nope, motion fails. So it was a bit of a shocker, and I'd prefer to get this corrected now. But if the rest of the council doesn't see fit to push this off, then I'll go with the will of the council.
Great, thank you, Councilmember Swickley. Councilmember Mackey.
Well, as much as I'd like to put it off till the 23rd, I know that Don and Sam are having a nervous breakdown right now thinking about that because they're on such a tight timeline. And then that would entail encouraging all the other member agencies to vote this week on changing the weighted vote. So I think the best thing to do is to ask our executive director, Don, to put it on the Pioneer Energy meeting on the in November, whenever it is, and getting in hopes that we could get an agreement to change that. But then it's going to have to come back to all the councils again, isn't it?
It's only Rockland that has a meeting this week.
No, the board is, oh, yeah.
That's right. Yeah, the next one after this one, after tomorrow, would be the Board of Soups and Loomis.
Yeah. No, I'm going to depend on you, Matt, to get this changed.
Yeah, I would also add, Councilmember Mackey, amendments that add new voting members go to all of the members, like this one, and other amendments can actually be handled by the board. And I'll defer to Don and Sam if they have a different reading of that. But the way I'm reading this is that the JPA board could change that on their own without coming back to the members.
Oh, we could do that at our board meeting.
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Then I'm in agreement with that. So how about, okay, I'll defer to Matt.
Okay, Councilmember Swickley, go ahead.
So Gary, the weighted voting that's in the bylaws for the JPA can be amended by a vote of the board. It doesn't have to be ratified by their councils.
That's correct. So the amended and restated JPA agreement has a procedure in it for amendments to the agreement itself. And it says that all amendments are approved by the board of the JPA. The only exception is an amendment that brings in a new voting member like this one. They still have to give notice to all the members. So when they propose an amendment, they have to notify all the members that they're doing it beforehand. That's an agreement in the JPA agreement. Some JPAs are set up like that, some are not. This one is.
And this is coming in the kindest of ways, but you waited till now to tell us this?
Yeah.
I'm sorry that I didn't, yes. Obviously, my apologies.
I'm kidding, Gary. Thank you for bringing that up.
Councilmember Mackey, any other comments?
No, I'm ready to move forward with a motion and to approve this.
So I will just add my 2 cents that in doing my research here, and I brought up a few potential future concerns of where our partner cities may or may not go, and sounds like there may not be change. However, ensuring that we have stability in our power purchasing, I think, is the most critical item, because stability ensures that financially we are solvent and we continue to be able to allow this board to provide us energy at a less than rate than Pacific Gas and Electric. And then all the other benefits that were mentioned here, there really is not a negative in adding El Dorado and Placerville. I just think the economy of scale is a good thing. And I really appreciate Don coming tonight with the assessment numbers and then going through some of the worst case scenario kind of mapping out, because it shows that you and Sam have definitely done your due diligence to make sure that we're not just looking at the carrot that's in front of us and the short-term benefit that this adds, but really understanding what are the true risks as well, and balancing those risks and really realizing that those risks are minimal, and so that the greater good is adding them obviously makes financial sense based on that. So I am in full agreement that I'd like to see it be a one vote equals one vote. I am curious why we didn't all do a good enough job. And I know not all of us were on this council when we moved into Pioneer. So this really wasn't a discussion item, because I am not aware, at least on the two regional boards that I have sat on, it is a one vote by community. And that really ensures that even smaller cities like ourselves have an equal voice. Just because we're not based on population size, our needs are different. And so making sure that we have a voice with one vote makes sense. So I'm in support of getting rid of the weighted vote as well. And I guess I really look to Council Member Mackey to really help maneuver that and craft that. I'm in support tonight, though, of moving the amendment to expand as it sits. And then I guess I look to the rest of the council to figure out what's the strategy. Is it that we send a letter? Is it that we provide direction? Though my guess is Councilmember Mackey doesn't really need our direction to move this item forward, as she's already directed Don to agendize it. But I also don't know what other work needs to happen behind the scenes in order to ensure that not only one, that legitimately gets agendized, but two, that the votes are there to make the change at the Pioneer board level. And I do appreciate Gary doing a very quick legal analysis. I don't blame him in giving us this late in the game, because he's not really Pioneer's attorney. So Gary, thanks for looking at it and giving us some reassurance that it won't be too much of a bureaucratic process to get that change made, even if not all the member cities are in agreement for it. I just think that Placer County as a whole and all of our member cities individually will be just at a much greater advantage to have the one vote per community versus the weighted vote, and the potential issues that could have, especially as El Dorado is a growing county. So that could change. El Dorado County could take the percentage lead and have a majority in the not near, too distant future. So I think making sure we're doing our due diligence here to getting rid of that weighted vote is important. So with that, I'll bring it back to the council to see if we have a motion. And I see Councilwoman down in Calvillo's hand up. Go ahead.
Yes. So just a quick procedural question for, I guess, really maybe Don, for you. If we were to make a motion stating that we would adopt the resolution approving Amendment 1, and then to say with the commitment that the board will consider changing or actually eliminating the weighted vote as delineated in the original JPA, would that be problematic from a procedural perspective for you, Don?
No, it would not.
Okay, so I'm ready to make a motion then, Mr. Mayor, if everyone's finished. Or
I think Cheryl already made a motion.
Well, I started to, but Alice wanted to add that codicil.
Okay.
So that's okay, Alice. Go ahead. You make the motion with your wording.
Okay, so I would move that we adopt a resolution. Actually, we have the number of resolution in here, right? Oh, no, we don't. So I move that we adopt a resolution approving Amendment 1 to the amended and restated Joint Powers Agreement for Pioneer Community Energy expanding Pioneer Community Energy membership to include the County of El Dorado and the City of Placerville as voting members, with the commitment from Pioneer Energy CEO that the issue of the weighted vote will be calendared at your next meeting. And then that we, okay, I'll just stop there.
Yeah, that's good enough. I'll make sure he does it.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a first and a second. Any questions? Not seeing any. I'll go ahead and ask the clerk to please take the roll.
Councilmember Dowden Calvillo,
Aye.
Amara,
Yes.
Mackey,
Aye.
Stokely,
Yes.
and Mayor Berlant.
Aye, all right. The amendment as well as that direction passes 5-0, but I will go ahead and bring it back to Councilwoman Dowden Calvillo. Go ahead.
I wanted just to make another motion, and that is that move that we direct the city manager to prepare a letter in support of eliminating that weighted vote for submittal to the board.
I'll second that.
Okay, I'm not sure we need to take a vote on that direction, but seeing as
Okay, we don't have to.
if I will agree, so that clearly is a majority. Is there anybody that has any? I'm seeing only nods. So, John, I want to just be clear. Do you understand that direction, or do you have any follow-up questions?
No, I understand fully.
Okay, perfect. So we will go ahead and have that direction be added to the record. So thank you, Councilwoman Dowden Calvillo, for adding that as well. Don, Sam, thank you for joining us this evening.
Thanks, guys.
We appreciate it.
Thank
Good
you.
luck as you move on to the next city.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Good luck tomorrow night.
Thank you. We'll need it.
You might have as much fun, huh?
Definitely not. Thanks a lot, folks. Have a great night.
All right, we'll go ahead and move to our reports. And item number 8, the city manager report.
Yeah, Mayor and Council. Just included in the packet tonight is just kind of an overview. You know, one of the things I've tried to stress with the council is I really want to, you know, have a lot of transparency in a lot of the things that we're working on. Over the years, one of the things I've found successful is just to let people know exactly what's on the city manager's plate and some of the things that we're doing. You know, tonight's discussion is a really good example. There are so many things that are going on, and to give the council perspective. So tomorrow it'll be that I've been on the job for 3 months. In the packet, I've included just kind of a little overview of the many things that are simply on my desk and the things that I'm working with folks on. And I thought I would just share that with the council if there are any questions on them. You know, one of the things I think the council knows that it is every day I take up 2 different topics and I meet with 2 different people. And I'm now cresting having met with almost 100 people in Auburn as I talk about many of the different things that we're doing, everyone from the staff to people on our various committees and commissions. So on this, I just kind of include the items, everything from the things that we're working on with our human resources and personnel, capital facilities. There's a lot of really hot items. I will share that this afternoon I spent almost the entire afternoon going through a very thorough fiscal review on the whole landfill issue that was talked about quite a bit at our last council meeting. And then from tonight's meeting, we'll talk about those. But I will share with you that some of the weeks kind of become a blur. This item, the mayor and I talked before the meeting about Pioneer Energy, and when I talked with the staff, I said, well, hey, is the financial analysis? Well, that'll be up on their next meeting. And who knew that they were gonna have a special meeting on Friday? I had it that the next meeting was in December. So anyway, lots of things going on, lots of very good things. The one thing that we know as we move forward with everything from big items like the housing element, the budget that was adopted last week, obviously some things, the issues with Measure S, and where that lands, lots of big items, lots going on. So if there are any questions that anybody has on any of the projects I've listed, I'd be happy to answer them for you.
Great, thank you, John. Any questions for the city manager? Yeah, Councilwoman Donna Calvillo, go ahead.
It's not really a question, it's more of a comment. I just wanted to applaud your efforts, John. I really do appreciate the work that you're doing to ensure that we are being transparent. I know our mayor does a phenomenal job at this as well at the council level, but I really do appreciate your reports that you post them on social media. And I think that it's a tremendous step in the right direction. The more people understand what we do, I think the better. And I am very much appreciative of your efforts in that direction and encourage you to continue to move in that direction. So thank you so very much. That's important to me. Transparency is always, and accountability. So thank you.
And I would note as well for you and for the future mayors of Auburn that John and I have had some good conversations about, the focus that I've had over the last several months have obviously been crisis after crisis after crisis. And so trying to overly communicate and provide that transparency that was lacking when I took over really required many of the things that I've been doing, but to ensure that that we're setting the future mayors up for success and not necessarily setting anybody up for failure. A lot of those updates and a lot of that effort to kind of keep people informed, I again, can't speak for those of you who come after me, but I know the city manager, John, is working to keep doing those things, many of which he did in his previous community. So just want to be clear on that as well, that for the next mayor, there may not necessarily need to be the same level that I had to do during these crises, and trying to make sure that we set that up for success. John and staff will help pick up a lot of that effort. So thank you, John. Any other questions for the city manager? Okay, great. Not seeing any. Thank you, John, for your report. We'll move on then to item number 9, the COVID update. I will just kick this off with a few quick things. First, cases across the state are obviously on the rise. In Auburn last week, we had 17 new cases. Just over the weekend, we had 7. So we are definitely increasing our numbers countywide and even in our community. Based on the daily case rate, we talked about at our last special session of the City Council that Placer County likely would be reverting back into an old tier. In fact, our Placer County numbers really for new case rates put us in the purple tier. Based on these numbers, the state it was anticipated the state would move Placer County from the orange tier to the red tier last week. However, on Monday, as a last ditch effort, the county, for lack of better words, filed an appeal to review a number of items to try to get the state to not move us back. However, we are expecting to hear tomorrow that our adjudication was not successful and that we will be moving from orange to red. So tomorrow is the announcement by the state. In the interim, myself, I have been working very closely with our county supervisor with a number of discussions with our county health officer, specifically trying to figure out what we can do to help advocate for our community to ensure that our businesses are open, but our residents are safe. Figuring out additional guidances through our county supervisor. She was able to help us push to get additional questions asked by the state related to outdoor dining and outdoor retail in inclement weather situations. Obviously, it is frigid cold the last couple of days, and that will continue. And so I think we are now in that point of people are not going to necessarily want to eat outside and do business outside. So how can we update some of the guidances to ensure that those activities that are now restricted to outdoor be done in a safe manner so that people don't get sick from other colds and flus that could be out by forcing them to be outdoors in the cold. So that work is being done as well. And then I'll just lastly, before handing it off to John, John was kind enough in talking with the county and the Chamber of Commerce. We have drafted a letter to our county officials asking them to include cities and chambers to be part of their Placer Invest program so that we can do more community-wide types of projects that benefit multiple businesses and not just grants that help individual businesses. So I had a very good conversation with our county supervisor and have support on that item, but we'll be sending a full letter to the entire board. I know city staff brought that up as well to county staff and got some mixed reviews on when the best timing of that would be, whether it's really going to be in this current grant program that they're about to roll out or some future CARES dollars. But either way, we'll continue the effort to try to ensure that we can work to help create these, again, kind of more community-wide types of projects and funding opportunities. So with that, John, I'll turn it to you to continue the report.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. So Placer Invest, $5 million additional dollars that's coming out from the county. The mayor's correct. We brought up the idea of maybe spreading some of that money. The reality is that under the Placer Shares Invest, they've got some pretty strong particulars about that. Of the 5, 3 is to go to nonprofits, and $2 million is going to larger employers that employ 10 or more employees, and larger grants, like as much as $50,000 for some of them. Probably when it comes to the nonprofits, they're being very targeted. Really 3 main areas: food, rental assistance, and mental health and domestic issues, which are actually soaring issues right now as far as the impacts of COVID. The one thing that we are going to be doing is getting with the folks. I tell folks I really like working with Jackie Weston with the Chamber, Rob from the Visitors Bureau. I think we make a very good team. And I think what we're going to do is we're going to work on communicating to the supervisors through a letter from this council, and also me, Jackie, and Rob pressing as best we can. We're going to schedule a Zoom with some of the people from the county doing these grant programs, and see what we can do to maybe emphasize in either some type of a future allocation of CARES money. I know that they're anticipating that hopefully there might be another stimulus that comes down that'll hit on these things, and exactly what the council is talking about. When we brought up the idea of more of a regional or an organizational allocation, some of the other folks on the COVID group were very supportive of that idea. But I think the county's trying to be extremely strategic. This $5 million, by the way, is very generous by Placer County. I don't think there's anybody else doing this. I was on a call with all the city managers last week, and everybody was like, wow, we don't have that. It's not happening in Sacramento County. And the other cities the other counties comparatively is pretty small. So anyway, bottom line, we'll look to communicate to the county. Rob, Jackie, and I are going to do our best on working with the county staff on things, and we'll see where it all goes. Moving back to red is almost inevitable, but I will tell you that going to purple, everybody has just shaken their heads and realized that we have 3 counties within basically a 30-minute drive that are all looking to go purple. And that just has a train wreck written all over it. it would still allow retail, but it would probably be crushing to the hospitality industry. So we'll have to see. Anyway, that's my report.
Great, thank you. Any questions for the city manager? Okay, not seeing any. We'll go ahead and move to item number 10 then, our city council committee reports. And I'll just go in order if I see you. So Councilor Amar, any reports to make?
Thank you, Mayor Berlant. I attended the ARD meeting and actually several meetings I've attended. The chamber governance meeting was canceled because that was the next morning after the election results. And so I think that'll be coming up. Downtown Business Association, that was a very productive meeting. They went over the scarecrow contest and whether or not that was a success, and everybody felt it was, and I think it's going to happen again next year. We talked about, they talked about the one-way street idea, and that is moving forward. And I believe there will be, there's a point person who will be bringing that over to one of our staff members, and there's going to be a drawing, and then they're going to have a general meeting and see how that goes with everyone with regard to the one-way potential. And probably the biggest discussion with the Downtown Business Association was how to support our businesses in the winter with COVID now spiking, and we're moving into the red. And so what they came up with was heaters. I think, luckily we live in an area that we see rain. Well, we don't see rain as much as we used to. And hopefully we will, but on our sunny day, on our days where there's no rain, heaters are important. And they emphasize that there will be interest in individuals who will eat outside and do not want to dine indoors, and especially if dining indoors is problematic in terms of capacity, it's important. So the cost of heaters was expensive. They're looking to have some way to finance that. They were hoping that the county with their placer program, with the programs they have, that they could come up with some and help. And I know John has tried, and Jackie and Rob, and I hear what you're saying. It doesn't sound very promising, but maybe in the future, but this has got to happen fairly soon. It's getting colder. So anyway, that was an important discussion. We have to support our businesses. And then there was the discussion on Christmas and how to move forward. And there's still the interest of having the Friday night Christmas environment where there's storefronts staying open later and having some types of chestnuts in the streets or music. So they're working toward that this year, and having lighting and contests so that everyone, the decoration is very welcoming in terms of the Christmas season. Then there was the sustainability, and I'm going into a lot of detail here on a lot of these. I don't want to take up too much more time, but the Sustainability Committee met, and the committee was so honored to have our hardworking city manager attend and give a wonderful presentation, direction, assistance, support. That gave some guidance to the group, and the group was pleased to have that input, and they're going to be following up on a lot of the suggestions that our city manager made. And I'll give you more when the next meeting occurs, and there's an identification as to how they're going to proceed forward. So with that, that is all I have for tonight. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Councilwoman Donna Calvillo.
Yes, so thank you very much. Really, the only meeting that I had over the past 2 weeks was the Arts Commission meeting on Monday, which was last Monday, and I was unable to attend that meeting. So I don't have anything to report on that end. Endurance Capital of the World Committee meets next week. But I did ask John, as the city's liaison to the airport, to be sure to include me in the meetings to discuss the minimum operating standards. So I'll be participating in those meetings. I have been working with Mac. Actually, I reached out to Mac, so I will be talking with him further about that as well. So I just want to let the council know that. And also, Mr. Mayor, I wanted to ask if we're going to have the Economic Recovery Task Force meeting on Friday this week. Are we doing that this week?
I haven't decided that. Is there a request to do that?
Well, when Councilmember Amara was talking about, obviously the financial issues with regards to winterizing, outdoor dining and things of that nature. And it sounds like maybe Placer County is not able or willing to really entertain the proposal to include local agencies of the chamber in that grant giving process, that generous grant program they have. It might behoove us as a council to talk about what monies that we may be able to move around within our existing budget to perhaps assist. And I think, we can't really go into a lot of discussion because it's not on the agenda tonight, but I do have some thoughts on that, and I'd like to be able to discuss them with the council. So it would be advantageous to have that meeting this Friday. The following Friday, I have an actual work commitment. I would not be able to participate in the meeting if you did it the 20th, but I could definitely do it this Friday.
Let me follow up with our city manager tomorrow morning and with Vice Mayor Spokley. He and I chatted this morning about holding an admin meeting to discuss some other budgetary items. And so that may be something too that the admin committee could take a look at and then bring to the full council some discussion points on that. So before I make a full commitment, let me we will confirm that tomorrow morning. And
If you have that discussion at the admin committee meeting, I know that's a noticed meeting, correct? Well, you have two council members. I have thoughts, so I'm just trying to figure out the best way to convey those within the confines of the Brown Act.
It'll definitely need to be at
talk to the city manager
meeting with us, a meeting outside of that committee. I only had thought that may be an opportunity for us to at least pave some initial groundwork, and not taking into any considerations or ideas that you have just yet, but at least maybe start pulling together some details. But either way, regardless, we will move forward with getting a special meeting scheduled to have that discussion.
Thank you.
As early as Friday.
Thank you. That's all that I have to report. Thank you.
Great. Councilmember Spokley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I had last week, I guess, I'm sorry, the SACOG Land Use and Natural Resource Committee meeting. And at that meeting, we were reviewing the framework for the next round of grant funding through the Regional Early Action Planning Grant Fund. I think I said that right. It's a state grant that it's passed down through the member agencies to participate in early planning activities. A part of this grant fund came out earlier, and it was related to all of the housing element updates that all of the member jurisdictions are working on now. So this next round of funds coming out might afford us some opportunity to seek some grant funds to do some things. So I sent an email out to John and Tanya, and I'm looking forward to conversations with them about where we can proceed with some of these opportunities. As we all know, our general plan is woefully outdated. So this might be opportunities for us to seek some funds to get that process started. Not pay for the whole thing because it's a very expensive proposition, but might be an opportunity for us to move some things forward on that front. The other thing I just want to mention, also related to SACOG, is John and Tanya, I think, and maybe others at the city, were able to kind of pull together fairly quickly an application for the Green Means Go program, which is part of our SCS target goals, 19% reduction for the region. And they were able to get that application in. SACOG's working with us to kind of refine a couple of things, but I want to thank John here for working with me to kind of get that application in. We're talking about kind of a redevelopment zone, if you will, close to our multimodal transit station and areas that may become vacated by Placer County in coming years. So that's along Nevada Street, no secrets there. We've talked about it before, but anyway, it's good to be in the hunt. We can modify the boundaries of that if we want to expand it and include maybe some areas along the Highway 49 corridor, just north of Interstate 80. But we're in. So John, thank you for that. Thank Tanya for that, please. It was nice to see we actually got in the door. We're one of 20 out of 27 member jurisdictions that we're able to get applications in. So appreciate that effort. That's all I have to report.
Great, thank you. Councilwoman Mackey.
Thank you. Pioneer. I don't guess I have to really report on anything from Pioneer because you heard it all tonight, at least 3 meetings. Also, Placer County Transportation Planning Agency, relatively simple meeting. They just did an overview of their unmet transit needs and their overall work program. And if you haven't seen their work and projects, you should go to their website. It kind of gives an interesting overview of all the projects they have going. And they're not right here in Auburn right now, but a lot of those projects impact us. So it's interesting to see what their designs are and what they've done. They also gave Board Member Mackey a nice plaque and said goodbye and said some nice words. And then the very next day, Solvay called me and said, by the way, I understand you're not going to be off the board till December 7th, and we have a special meeting in December. After I said my goodbyes, I'm going back for one more meeting. So that was that. Also, I wanted to bring up that Mike had said to me a while back, asked me about having a ribbon cutting for Nevada Street. And we should do some sort of celebration because PCPPA was very, a big part of the funding strategy and the design and all that for that project. And a way to thank them and thank everybody that it was involved and, celebrate the success of that improvement to our community. I think we need to have some sort of, ribbon cutting or something. So I just wanted to say that here in front of all the council members, because I think I might have mentioned it to John early on, but that was probably 100 meetings ago. So anyway, that's it for me for now. Thanks.
All right, thank you. And I don't have anything to report. So obviously, as we discussed, I will have more information for all of us tomorrow on a special session, potentially on Friday for our economic recovery workshop. In the interim, I'll go ahead and adjourn the meeting and see most of you tomorrow morning for Medlar. So have a good night, everybody.
And Don Eckert is the speaker at Medlar's tomorrow.
So we'll hear even more about Pioneer. Thank you.
Yes, lucky us. All right. Good night, everybody.
Bye.